Hello, my friends. Welcome to 7 PMBOK Guide 7th edition myths. We're going to be talking about the PMBOK Guide 7th edition and straightening out some misconceptions that have been floating around out there. The first myth, PMBOK 7 replaces PMBOK 6 for PMP exam and practice. This is a flat out untruth. It is not correct. The PMBOK Guide 7th edition is a complementary addition to the 6th edition. And that's why if you go to Standards Plus, you'll find that page, page 25, with all the process groups, all the knowledge areas and the processes, you'll find it. It's still in context. It's still being referred to in the context of the 7th edition. So the PMBOK Guide 7th does not replace the 6th. Instead, it offers complementary views and understanding from a higher level. Second myth, the 7th edition is moving to a principles-based approach. This is another untruth. Now, what do we mean by moving? It's not moving. The 6th edition is still in the background for those projects that require it. But the 7th edition has added, not moved away from, principles. It's added principles, not moved away from anything that was in the 6th. What is in the 6th is not incorrect. It's not wrong. It is still legitimate. It is focused more towards predictive type projects. And I said more because there's still some good agile oriented information in the 6th. So the 7th has not moved. It has emphasized certain principles, but those principles are not meant to replace knowledge areas because they are two different things. The way you think versus what you need to work on a project are two different things. The way you think, that's principles. The way you act, think principles as well, because that will govern your behavior ultimately if you're thinking right. But the knowledge areas are pieces of knowledge, things you need to know about, not how you need to think per se. So the 7th edition has not moved. It has added some principle focus for people who may not have thought about that. Now, lots of you have already read the Agile Practice Guide and you might be certified or you might be getting ready to be. Think about these principles as similar to what you have in the Agile Practice Guide on page 8 and 9. All right, let's move on. PMBOK 7 is agile. This is a flat out untruth again. The PMBOK Guide 7th edition is not, in quote, agile. It contains some agile speak and some agile understanding, and some of the things you find in the Agile Practice Guide have actually made their way into the PMBOK Guide 7th edition directly. If you take a look at the PMBOK Guide 7th edition and you search for the word Scrum, you'll probably find it once or twice, if that. So thinking that the Agile Practice Guide is going away and the PMBOK Guide 7th edition replaces the 6th and the Agile Practice Guide is a flat out untruth. The PMBOK Guide 7 is not agile. It presents a more agnostic view, but even then, it's still rather heavily predictive when you get down to the nitty gritty of it. A lot of folks don't know this and they go in by hearsay. It's not true. Okay, so when you get a moment, look for how many times you find mentions of the concepts around Agile and compare that to the overwhelming amount of times you find mention made of methods and practices and models that are still very heavily entrenched in predictive. The next one, number 4, says the 7th edition replaces the out-of-date methods. Again, similar to what we just said, the methods talked about in the 6th edition, first of all, are not out of date. They are used in a number of companies today. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in predictive projects. If you take a look at page 14 in the Agile Practice Guide, you'll find the Stacy complexity model that shows you a band of possibilities. You could be predictive, you could be agile, and page 19 of the Agile Practice Guide shows you could be hybridized. So the 7th edition is not replacing the, in quote, out-of-date methods. There's nothing out of date there. Just because you use predictive approaches does not mean they're out of date. So let's get the story right. Okay, next. Someone says no more ITTOs. Again, that is not true. If you take a look at the 7th edition, you will see the models, the methods, and the artifacts. What are the methods? The methods are tools and techniques, just given another name. What are the artifacts? They're inputs and outputs with another name. And if you take a look at some of the models, they've existed in previous editions of the PMBOK guide as tools and techniques, or mention has been made of them in a related context. So again, saying no more ITTOs is untrue. Next one is about the PMP exam. Someone says PMP exam content outline will change to reflect the 7th. There are now 3 domains in the content outline. Well, it will change to reflect the number of domains in the 7th edition. Again, it's not true. And that's why I tell folks, if you're getting ready for the PMP exam, you need to be focusing on the PMP exam content outline as your lens of understanding of what is in the exam, not the 7th edition. It'll mess you up. Don't do it. When handling the 7th edition, it is very important, especially for students who are getting ready for the exam, that you relate to it through a trainer, a coach, someone who knows both worlds inside out. If you take a look at social media right now, most people are telling you don't read the 7th edition. But the students, unfortunately for them, who don't know very much, think, oh, well, the recent edition has got to be better than the previous, and they're picking up the 7th and trying to read it. They're only going to confuse themselves. And I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't read the 7th. Rely more on the videos that I have put out to break it down, or other reliable videos to break it down without going into an overwhelming amount of detail, like studying for another 20 hours just to read the 7th. Is don't do it. That's all I'll tell you. Don't do it. Trust me. I coached someone who was relatively new to this topic of the PMBOK guide and things such as this, and really didn't have as much definition for the exam. And this individual passed the exam in less than a month. And I'm not talking about just one individual like that. I've seen this time and time again, where people come into my course, they understand the logic and the rationale, the mindset, and it's off to the races, and they do great without even knowing about the 7th edition, okay? So trust me when I tell you, don't do it. Don't. Finally, the CAPM exam will change to reflect the 7th edition. Again, right now, the PMI has made it very clear the CAPM exam is focused on the 6th. If you're taking the CAPM in 2021, even early 2022, I'm telling you, don't do it, because you're going to mess yourself up. The way the CAPM exam is structured maps directly back to chapters in the 6th edition, chapters 1, 2, 3, all the way to the end. So PMI has not made any announcements yet, and it is likely to be some time before they get around to this, because they've got their hands full. They've got all the discipline agile stuff. They've got the new PMP exam. They've got people pulling their hair out, not knowing how to study, wondering what to read, what to focus on. So if I were you, taking the CAPM, just be safe. Don't open the 7th, okay? I hope this helps you, and I hope this calms your mind as far as those of you who have ordered the 7th and are eagerly reading it. Stop reading it. Focus on what your course presents to you, especially if you're one of our students. You have absolutely no business reading the 7th edition, okay? And when I tell you not to read it, I mean don't read it. You have no business doing it. I'll do all the heavy lifting for you. If there's anything that is worthy of mention, it's already in the course. For example, let me tell you the things in the 7th that are in our training already. First one is the Hersey-Blanchard model. That is one of the models we train. The second one is the understanding of change at an organizational level without going into the models PMI talks about. That is in our course as well. And to be quite honest, there's really nothing significant that is not already in there. The topic of leadership is very well covered in our training, see? And that is why I tell people, stay away from the 7th, be safe. All right, I hope this calms your mind and gives you some context for your preparation. You take care. Bye for now.